found her daughter shivering on the porch that Christmas night. Evelyn Harper, a widowed mother, watched through the window as her in-laws laughed by the fire. By morning, every gift and promise would be taken back, and her daughter would never beg at that door again. I'm curious, where in the world are you joining us from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates. Christmas lights can't hide the shadows inside a home. The snow came down in soft, lazy swirls as Helen navigated the winding suburban streets, windshield wipers humming their tired rhythm. White Christmases were rare this far south, but this one felt picture perfect, like something out of the Hallmark movies she used to watch with Anna when her daughter was still in high school, curled up on the couch, cheeks red from the cold, heart wide open to the world. She smiled to herself. Anna had no idea she was coming. Helen had baked pecan bars that morning, packed them in a red tin wrapped with gold ribbon, and made the hour-long drive to the Whitaker family estate, a sprawling brick colonial with a circular driveway and manicured hedges that never looked quite real. She imagined Anna laughing in the glow of firelight, maybe wearing that burgundy sweater Helen bought her last Christmas, maybe surrounded by people who, for once, saw how lucky they were to have her. As Helen parked, she caught a glimpse of lights through the frosted windows, twinkling reds and greens, the silhouette of a towering tree inside. Laughter echoed faintly from within, warm and full. Everything looked perfect. But Anna was nowhere in sight. Helen rang the bell once, then again. Nothing. She walked around the side of the house, heels crunching softly against the snow, past trimmed hedges wrapped in ribbons. Through the window, she saw Anna's husband, David, seated near the fireplace, smiling lazily as he sipped from a crystal tumbler. Margaret, the matriarch, held court on the settee, laughing with one hand curled around a glass of wine. Still no Anna. Helen's breath formed a pale cloud as she moved toward the back guard, boots sinking deeper now. And then she saw her, huddled near the edge of the patio, sitting on the stone steps with her arms wrapped tightly around herself, was Anna. No coat, just a thin dress and slippers. Her face was blotchy from the cold, lips pale, hair wet with melting snow. Helen froze, her chest hollowed out. "Anna," she called, rushing toward her. Anna looked up, startled. Her voice came out in a brittle whisper. "They locked me out." Helen fell to her knees beside her. "What? What are you talking about?" I forgot the dessert Margaret asked for. She told me to go outside and think about what I'd done. Then they just didn't let me back in." Helen couldn't speak. Rage twisted inside her like a blade. Her daughter was shivering, while those monsters laughed by the fire like nothing had happened. She pulled off her own coat and draped it over Anna's shoulders, rubbing her arms, trying to bring warmth back. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't want you to see me like this." Helen's voice cracked. "I would have come sooner if I'd known." A surge of protective fury surged through her. She stood, fists clenched. "No," she muttered. "This isn't happening. Not tonight." She marched up to the back door and pounded hard, 3 times, like thunder against the winter silence. Inside, Margaret turned lazily toward the noise, her smile faltering. Helen pounded again, this time louder. They were going to open that door, she thought, and when they did, they'd see exactly what happens when a mother finds her child in the snow. Helen pounds on the door, demanding they let her daughter in. Family can wound deeper than strangers. The door opened slowly, with the precision of someone who already regretted answering it. Margaret Whittaker stood in the glow of the foyer chandelier, silk scarf draped over her shoulders like royalty, her lips curved into something that might have been a smile, if not for the eyes behind it. Cold, superior. "Helen," she said with forced cheer. "How festive of you to drop by." Helen didn't return the smile. Her hands were shaking, less from the cold now, and more from rage barely contained. She was outside, in the snow, with no coat. Margaret blinked. Well, I assumed she went out for air. Helen stepped forward, forcing Margaret back a half step. "She told me you locked her out." The smile cracked, just for a second. "She embarrassed us," Margaret said flatly. "That dessert she brought, store-bought, it was humiliating. We have standards in this house." Helen's mouth fell open. "You left her to freeze over a pie." Inside, the grand living room shimmered with candlelight and garlands. David leaned against the mantel, smirking at something his uncle said. A cousin plucked at a piano softly, out of tune. No one looked toward the door. No one asked where Anna had gone. "They're still in there," Helen said, voice brittle, "laughing while your daughter-in-law nearly collapsed in the snow." Margaret's voice dropped into something harder. "You may think you understand this family, Helen, but you don't. Weakness isn't tolerated here. Anna's behavior reflects on all of us." "She's not weak," Helen snapped. "She's surviving you." Margaret's expression didn't budge. "She chose this life. She married into it. We all have expectations. If she can't handle that, maybe she's not as suited for it as you thought." Behind her, the fire crackled. David glanced up, finally noticing Helen's presence. He offered her a polite nod, then looked away like she was no more significant than the male. Helen's blood boiled. Anna had spent Christmases making paper snowflakes, humming Bing Crosby tunes while decorating their tiny tree with dollar store ornaments, and now this was how she was treated, tossed out like garbage because her dessert didn't match their designer china. Helen stepped fully into the doorway. Her voice rang out like a warning bell. "Anna's leaving, with me." Margaret crossed her arms. "If you don't like the way we handle things, you can both leave. No one's keeping her here." Helen's nostrils flared. "That's funny, because from where I'm standing, it looks a lot like you've kept her trapped." Margaret leaned in slightly, voice low. "She needs structure, discipline. We've given her a life she never could have built with you." Helen's eyes burned. "She needed love, and you gave her cruelty in a cashmere wrap." Behind them, the piano player struck a discordant note. Helen turned without another word. Outside, Anna waited beside the car, coat still wrapped tightly around her borrowed strength. Her cheeks were blotchy from crying, her nose red, but her eyes searched her mother's face with something close to hope. "Are we leaving?" Helen opened the car door. "We are." Anna slid in, her body curling slightly like a child. Helen slammed the door behind her. She looked back at the house one last time. At the family framed in twinkling lights, still pretending they were the good ones. Margaret sneers. "If you don't like it, you can both leave." Sometimes the warmest place is far from the fire. The car's heater roared as Helen drove through the snowy streets, headlights slicing through the swirling flurries. Inside, the silence was thick, less awkward than it was fragile, like a thin sheet of ice covering something too deep to measure. Anna sat curled in the passenger seat, hands tucked into her sleeves, gaze fixed out the window. The porch light, from the Whittaker mansion, was still visible in the rearview mirror when Helen finally spoke. "They don't get to do that to you." Anna didn't respond. "They don't get to decide your worth based on pie." Snowflakes dotted the windshield, melting under the wipers. Helen glanced at her daughter. "Sweetheart, say something." Anna's voice came out in a soft, cracked whisper. "I'm sorry." Helen's heart broke all over again. "For what? For ruining everything, for making you come all that way, for embarrassing you." Helen pulled the car to the side of the road, shifting into park with a sharp click. She turned to her daughter fully now, her voice trembling but steady. "Anna, look at me." Anna finally did, and in the orange glow of the dashboard, Helen could see just how young her daughter still was beneath all the forced poise. Her eyes were glassy, her mascara faintly smudged, her lips still trembling. "You didn't ruin anything," Helen said. "You didn't do anything wrong." "But I forgot the stupid pie," Anna choked out. I knew Margaret wanted that one from the French bakery, and I got distracted and..." Helen shook her head. "That's not why they did what they did. That was just the excuse they needed to be cruel." Anna looked down at her hands. I thought I could handle them." Helen reached over and gently took her daughter's hand, warming it in her own. "Cruelty dressed in tradition is still cruelty. Just because they wear nice jewelry and say things with a smile doesn't mean they aren't hurting you." Anna broke. Her shoulders shook as she sobbed, and she crumpled like someone who had been holding it in far too long. Helen let her cry. There was no shame here, just breath between the sobs and snow softly ticking against the windows. When Anna finally quieted, Helen pulled back onto the road. The silence returned, but this time it felt different, less like a burden and more like a pause between battles. As they reached the edge of the neighborhood, the radio crackled on softly. Bing Crosby's voice floated through the speakers. "I'll be home for Christmas." Helen blinked hard. She remembered singing that to Anna when she was 6, when their apartment barely had heat and Christmas dinner came from a church pantry. But back then, Anna had always been warm. Now she had a mansion and silver spoons, and she'd nearly frozen just feet from a roaring fireplace. Helen's grip tightened on the wheel. When they reached home, Helen unlocked the door and turned on the lights while Anna lingered in the entryway. The smell of cinnamon candles and vanilla wafted through the air, cozy and safe. "I know it's not much," Helen said, hanging up her coat, "but it's warm, and it's yours." Anna didn't answer. She just sat down on the worn couch and stared at the blinking lights on the small artificial tree in the corner. After a long moment, she pulled up her sleeve slightly, revealing deep, yellowing bruises on her upper arm. Helen's breath caught. "Anna, they're not from the cold," she said softly. "They're from David." At home, Anna reveals bruises, not from cold, but from her husband. Some truths burn colder than ice. Helen stared at the bruises blooming like ink across her daughter's arm, shaped not by accident, but intent. She knelt slowly, eyes locked on Anna's. "He did this." Anna didn't speak. She didn't need to. The silence between them, filled with every answer Helen never wanted to hear. "How long?" Anna swallowed, her voice barely audible. "A few months, maybe more." Helen's mind reeled. Christmas parties, polite smiles, small talk at family gatherings. She'd missed it all. She'd looked her daughter in the eye and missed it all. Her chest tightened with guilt and something darker, rage sharpened by helplessness. "He's hit you before?" Helen asked, her voice trembling. Anna nodded slowly. "He's careful. always where it won't show. Helen gripped the edge of the coffee table to steady herself. And his family? Do they know? A bitter smile flickered across Anna's lips. They know. Margaret told me to be more obedient if I wanted peace. Helen's hands curled into fists. She remembered the wedding now, how David had cut Anna off mid-speech with a joke everyone had laughed at, how he had dismissed Helen's handmade gift with a smirk, how Margaret had controlled the entire ceremony like a director staging a play. She thought it was nerves, formality, it was control, it was the warning shot. You've been living in hell, Helen whispered. Anna blinked fast. It's not always bad. He's not always like that. Helen sat beside her. Sweetheart, that's the trap. That's how they keep you there. I didn't want you to worry. Helen turned to her, eyes wet but fierce. I would have rather worried than failed you like this. Anna's voice cracked. I thought maybe I deserved it. I mess things up. I forget things. I'm not like them. Helen took her hand again, firmer this time. Good. Don't ever be like them. The warmth of the living room suddenly felt stifling, claustrophobic. Helen stood and began pacing, adrenaline building. All this time, they've been using you, training you to shrink, to serve, to keep their ugly little world polished while they treat you like property. She stopped and turned. No more. We are not staying quiet. Not another day. Anna wiped her cheeks. Even if I wanted to leave, I don't have anything. No money, no house. My name's not on the accounts, not even the car title. Helen's lips parted, but no words came. Her daughter wasn't just bruised, she was trapped. But not anymore. Do you remember Susan Gray? Helen asked suddenly. She and I taught together at Brighton Middle. She left to practice family law in Atlanta. Anna nodded faintly. I'm calling her, first thing in the morning. What will I even say? We'll start with the truth, Helen said. The bruises, the emotional control, the financial manipulation, every last detail. Anna hesitated. They'll destroy me, Mom. They'll fight back. You don't know them like I do. Helen's voice didn't waver. And they don't know me. She sat beside Anna once more and wrapped her in a firm, protective hug, like she was 6 years old again, crying over a scraped knee. I didn't protect you from them before, but I swear to God I will now. Anna nodded, resting her head on her mother's shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, she exhaled. Helen calls a lawyer friend the next morning. Abusers thrive in silence until silence breaks. Helen stirred her coffee 3 times clockwise, the spoon clinking softly against the ceramic. She didn't taste it, couldn't. Her eyes were fixed on the woman sitting across the table. Susan Gray, silver-streaked hair pulled into a no-nonsense twist. Sharp eyes made sharper by years in courtrooms. So, Susan said gently, tell me everything. Helen didn't hesitate. She laid it out with the clarity of a teacher giving a final lecture. Anna's isolation, the bruises, the control, the silence. How David's family wielded power like a sword, and Anna had been bleeding quietly for too long. Anna sat beside her, pale and quiet, flinching slightly when Susan asked questions directly. He's never hit your face, Susan asked. No, Anna murmured. Always where it won't show. Arms, back. Once. My ribs. Susan nodded grimly. Classic tactic. Makes it harder to prove without medical documentation. But emotional and financial abuse, we can build that case. Helen leaned forward. What about protection? Restraining orders? Can she leave safely? Yes, Susan said firmly. But she'll need to be ready. David and his family won't just roll over, especially swallowed hard. I'm scared. Susan's tone softened, but her words were steel. You should be. This will be a fight, but you won't be alone in it. Helen reached for her daughter's hand. You have me, and now you have her. Anna looked between them. What if they try to make me look crazy? Margaret always said I was too emotional, that no one would believe me.